Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events. I'm your host, Walter Dory Tal. Today, we're going to explore a story that highlights the complexities of international aid and the consequences of geopolitical decisions. Recently, a devastating earthquake struck Myanmar, leaving widespread destruction and loss of life in its wake. As the international community responds to this crisis, we're seeing a fascinating dynamic play out. The United States, which has historically been a major player in global humanitarian efforts, appears to be taking a backseat in this response. Meanwhile, countries like China and Russia are stepping in to provide aid and assistance. According to reports, China has sent teams of rescue workers and equipment to Myanmar, where they're working to pull people from the rubble and provide critical support to affected communities. Russia is also providing aid, although the exact nature and extent of their efforts are less clear. Now, it's worth noting that the U.S. has a long history of providing humanitarian assistance around the world, often through agencies like USAID. However, in recent years, there have been significant changes to the way the U.S. approaches international development and aid. The Trump administration's decision to dismantle USAID's economic growth and trade programs, for example, has had far-reaching consequences. In an interview, a former USAID official expressed concerns about the impact of these changes on the U.S. response to the Myanmar earthquake. If USAID were still intact, we would have a large disaster assistance response team on the ground, they said. We would have mobilized urban search and rescue teams from Los Angeles County and Fairfax County, Virginia. They would be there with the sniffer dogs and the equipment necessary to pull people out of the rubble. The official also highlighted the risks faced by local staff who have worked with USAID in Myanmar, many of whom have received termination letters and will be left without support or protection. We are going to turn our backs on those who serve the U.S. government and also serve their own country by trying to bring reforms to it, they warned. As we consider the implications of this story, it's essential to recognize the complexities at play. On one hand, the U.S. has a long tradition of providing humanitarian aid and supporting international development efforts. On the other hand, countries like China and Russia are increasingly seeking to expand their influence and shape the global agenda. So what does this mean for the people of Myanmar, who are struggling to recover from this devastating earthquake? And what are the broader implications for U.S. foreign policy and global stability? These are questions we'll continue to explore in the coming days and weeks. For now, it's clear that the international response to the Myanmar earthquake is a multifaceted and dynamic situation, with many different players and interests at work. As we navigate this complex landscape, it's essential to prioritize fairness, balance, and accuracy in our reporting. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the world of international news and politics for our middle segment today. I'm your host, Walter, and we've got a lot to unpack. We're looking at a complex situation unfolding in the Middle East, where tensions between Israel and Hamas continue to escalate. The conflict has resulted in significant loss of life, with over 1,000 health workers killed since October 2023, according to the United Nations. This includes more than 100 Palestinian civil defense workers who have lost their lives. Now, let's try to break down what's happening here. Israel has accused Hamas of using ambulances and other emergency transport as shields, while the International Red Cross-Red Crescent has condemned the recent attack on its personnel as the deadliest assault in 8 years. It's essential to acknowledge that both sides have made accusations against each other, and it's crucial to approach this situation with a nuanced understanding. In related news, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to impose reciprocal tariffs on countries that charge high tariffs on American goods. This move is expected to affect several nations, including India, Canada, China, the European Union, and Mexico. While some argue that these tariffs could encourage domestic manufacturing, others fear they may raise costs for consumers and hike inflation. It's also worth noting that Trump has referred to April 2 as Liberation Day, suggesting that these tariffs will bring about a new era of fairness in trade. However, the impact of these measures remains to be seen, and it's essential to consider multiple perspectives on this issue. Moving on, we're seeing increased military activity from China, with drills being conducted off Taiwan's coast. This has raised concerns about China's sovereignty claims over the island and its potential implications for regional stability. The United States has been strengthening its military ties with Japan and the Philippines, which could be seen as a response to China's growing assertiveness. As we navigate these complex geopolitical situations, it's crucial to remain informed and consider multiple viewpoints. We'll continue to monitor these developments and provide you with in-depth analysis and updates. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. Today, we're discussing a developing story that has significant implications for public health in the United States. As you may know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the current Secretary of Health and Human Services, has been making headlines with his views on vaccines and his leadership style. Now, I want to provide some context before we dive into the details. Kennedy has been a prominent figure in the anti-vaccine movement, and his appointment as HHS Secretary raised concerns among public health experts. Recently, analysts at Cantor Fitzgerald, a reputable investment firm, released a statement criticizing Kennedy's qualifications and actions as HHS Secretary. According to the analysts, Kennedy's skepticism of vaccines and promotion of unproven treatments could deter routine immunizations in the U.S. They also expressed concern about the potential consequences of his leadership, citing the recent resignation of Peter Marks, the head of the FDA Biologics Division, in protest of Kennedy's views. On the other hand, some supporters of Kennedy argue that he is bringing a fresh perspective to the agency and challenging the status quo. However, it's essential to note that the scientific consensus on vaccines is clear. They are safe and effective in preventing serious diseases. In related news, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is conducting a study on the potential links between vaccines and autism, despite the fact that numerous studies have already debunked this claim. This has raised concerns among public health experts, who worry that this study may perpetuate misinformation and undermine trust in vaccines. As we consider these developments, it's crucial to remember that public health policy should be guided by scientific evidence, not ideology or personal opinions. The stakes are high, and the consequences of misguided policies can be severe. In conclusion, the situation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as HHS Secretary is complex and multifaceted. While some may see him as a champion of alternative views, others view his leadership as a threat to public health. As always, we strive to provide balanced and accurate information on Concrete Block, and we encourage our listeners to stay informed and critically evaluate the information they receive. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.